The Justice Department, CNN is learning, has launched a new criminal investigation into one of Trump's enemies, E. Jean Carroll. Now, E. Jean Carroll was the former magazine columnist who accused President Donald Trump of sexual assault. Ended up being that he was liable for sexual abuse. The source is telling CNN that the investigation now is focused on whether Carroll committed perjury during her 2 civil lawsuits against the president.
Are you kidding me? So he was adjudicated as having sexually assaulted her. And now he's going to assault her with the Department of Justice. Have you ever seen a more corrupt, disgusting guy than this? All right, Yaz has all the receipts for you guys.
Okay, so as Cenk said, Trump was actually found guilty, not just of sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll, but also of defaming her after the fact. So he and his supporters, of course, still insist that despite all of the evidence that came out during the trial, and despite the verdict itself, he is still innocent, of course. So now he is attempting to call E. Jean Carroll a liar and call all of her credibility into question. So here are some of the details. Let's watch.
Our sources tell us that this investigation is focused on a 2022 deposition that Carroll gave, where she said that she had not received any outside funding. Now, her lawyers later told the judge that she had in fact received funding for legal fees and expenses from billionaire Reid Hoffman. The judge overseeing this case ultimately said there were no issues with her credibility and blocked Trump lawyers from asking about this at trial. Now, Carroll currently has multiple legal battles with Trump currently pending, including one before the Supreme Court. Now, notably, Aaron, the Supreme Court has deferred 12 times on a decision whether they want to take up that case.
So just a friendly reminder that while our Justice Department is investigating E. Jean Carroll, our Justice Department is not currently investigating anyone mentioned in the Epstein files. Also, Trump was found guilty of sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll, but now she's being referred to as, what was it? One of Trump's enemies. How about that? So as you just heard, Trump is not claiming that she lied about any of her claims about him. He's not saying that she's lying about what she claims he did to her, but prosecutors are now alleging that she lied about having no outside funding for her lawsuit, even though billionaire Reid Hoffman was actually helping her pay some of the legal fees and expenses, okay? So in a 2022 videotape deposition, Carroll told the then Trump attorney, Alina Habba, that no one else was paying for her legal fees. But 2 weeks before the trial, Carroll's attorney informed the judge and Trump's lawyers that they secured funding from Hoffman's nonprofit. Carroll's lawyers said that she never met nor had any conversations with anyone associated with the nonprofit. Habba did say in court at the time that Carroll's team conspired to conceal the truth for nearly 6 months. And again, at the time, the judge said it was not an issue. So this isn't anything new that we're hearing about. We heard about it back then when the trial was ongoing. And the trial just went on as originally intended. And as you heard from the reporter, the judge blocked any questioning pertaining to the payments and Reid Hoffman during the trial. So now, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, he is kind of a wild card here right now. He has been leading Trump's retribution campaign ever since Pam Bondi was released from her duties. So he is now in the role of AG, but he has recused himself from this case because during the E. Jean Carroll case, he was working on that as one of Trump's personal attorneys. So he's not involved in any of this. Meanwhile, E. Jean Carroll is still trying to get the money that she won from Trump during the first 2 trials. She was awarded $5 million in her sexual assault case. And then she also won $83 million for her defamation case. And of course, Trump has not paid her any money. He has already appealed the $5 million and he is planning to appeal the $83 million. Cenk, this is obviously just such a waste of everybody's time. We have already gone to court over this, and it's almost like this doesn't, it almost invalidates our entire justice system if he can just say, no, I'm not gonna pay it.
Yeah, so this is MAGA being like mainstream media, telling us that, oh, it's just a coincidence that the Department of Justice happens to be going after all of Donald Trump's enemies. Really, bro? It's a coincidence? Like that they were like scouring the country for who are the worst criminals, right? By the way, if you don't know, Donald Trump fired almost all the people pursuing white collar crime across many different agencies. So if you're stealing millions of dollars, maybe even billions, free to go. And in fact, that's literal. Not only did he fire the people investigating fraud, but he pardoned a great number of white collar criminals who were convicted of fraud and stealing millions and millions of dollars from the average American. So that's all totally fine. But just, we couldn't find them. We happen to find every single political enemy and personal enemy of Donald Trump. And then on these knick-knack made up charges. Why do I say that? So on this one, you heard Yaz tell you, E. Jean Carroll's lawyers themselves told a court, we just got money from Reid Hoffman's nonprofit. Wow, they seem like they're hiding it so much. So that's what you're gonna pin your hopes on? Well, that could be a little bit, kind of tiny bit. I mean, look at what they did with Hassan and Code Pink. They don't care that they went to Cuba. They care that Code Pink and Hassan Piker won't stop talking about Israel. And Code Pink has done protests, and I think people are familiar with Hassan. And so what do? You guys stayed at the wrong hotel in Cuba. The tiniest violation ever. Be careful if you say it's a super important one, because it turns out Hassan and Code Pink didn't stay at that hotel. Right-wing Nick Shirley did. And they're not pursuing Nick Shirley. Why? If that's such a big, terrible crime, why aren't they going after the culprit? We found him, it's Nick Shirley. Because they're only going after Trump's political opponents and Israel's political opponents. So apparently Trump is calling for unity after another violent incident. And of course, depending on where you get your news, that story gets framed in completely different ways. On the right, the angle is that Trump is a uniquely powerful figure who keeps getting targeted because he's so effective. On the left, the focus is on something much more uncomfortable for them to deal with. Trump's long relationship with violent rhetoric and the political climate that he's helped to create. Now, you just saw how easy it is to look at one story and immediately compare two completely different narratives. And that is exactly why I recommend Ground News. It's a website and app that pulls together reporting from across the political spectrum so you can compare headlines side by side, see the bias distribution of the coverage, check the factuality ratings of the sources, and even see who owns the outlets behind the reporting. Because once you start looking at coverage that way, it becomes a lot easier to see when the media isn't informing you, it's managing your perception. Ground News also has a blind spot feed, which highlights stories that one side of the political spectrum is barely covering at all, so you're not trapped inside the version of events your media bubble wants you to accept. Go to ground.news/TYT or scan the QR code and get 40% off the Ground News Vantage plan. It's a great deal. So now, but to do it to a person you sexually assaulted, I mean, look, there's two things about that. Yes, number one is it is so incredibly petty and bitter and vindictive, and what a disgusting man. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't get away with sexually assaulting her. That's it. Try to pin some nonsense on her, put her in jail, take her freedom away. Why? Because she hurt his stupid ass ego. He's an unbearable guy, unbearable. So the second part is to destroy our system of laws and justice, to turn into like kangaroo courts and to totally junk the Department of Justice and turn it into his legal Gestapo to go after all of his enemies on the tiniest little things. And as you made a brilliant point there. This is a big major crime, but the guys who raped children with Epstein is not a big deal. We shouldn't even investigate them. We shouldn't pursue them. Come on.
That's what they said. They said there's nothing to see here. There's no credible evidence that anyone could possibly have to go off of in order to even investigate any of the people in the Epstein files apart from Jeffrey Epstein himself, who is dead allegedly, and also Ghislaine Maxwell, who allegedly is looking to get out of prison and get some kind of plea deal. So that is what our Justice Department has been reduced to. And all of this it's so crazy, like with Trump and his retribution campaign is so immature, so childish. And he said that going into this president presidential term, that he was going to be on his revenge tour. He was going to go after all of his enemies, all the people who ever did anything to him. And again, I made the point earlier, it is crazy that this woman who he was found guilty of sexually assaulting is now listed as one of his enemies that he needs to go after. This is a woman who went against Donald Trump and won because she had a case against him because he did something really, really terrible to her. And then he continued to be terrible towards her when he went on defaming her while he was on the presidential campaign, if I recall correctly. So it's really unbelievable that we're here. Although at the same time, it's really not that unbelievable. But really, this is a waste of everybody's time. This is a waste of money. It's a waste of resources. The fact that there are no competent people still working in our Justice Department is actually unjust, which is the irony of it all. But it really is all by design. This is exactly what they wanted. They wanted Trump. From the moment that he appointed his lackeys to be the attorney general, he had Pam Bondi there. Her job was just to do whatever Donald Trump wanted her to do, to the point that I think the American people might have started to forget that the attorney general is not supposed to work directly for the president. They work for us. They're supposed to be separate, but those lines have been so intentionally blurred over just like the past few years with Donald Trump at the helm of this country that, it's going to be very hard to rebuild all of these institutions once he is finally out of office.
Yeah. So look, last thing on this for me is this one enrages me. So it's one thing when he lets out the white collar criminals who probably robbed your grandmother and stuff, and that's already super frustrating. And he represents a different country, not our country, gets us into disastrous wars. We all have to pay so much more because he's so corrupt. But for some reason, for understandable reason, to assault her like that, and then to say, "No, I'm not done with you yet. I'm gonna hurt you more." It shows a moral sickness that's inside of him. And so that's why I've been against Donald Trump from day one. To me, it was obvious that this is a very indecent, very immoral person. You cannot put someone this deeply immoral in charge of a country. It'll lead to disastrous results, and it has.
Yeah, and not just that, Cenk. It's so icky and predatory. Like he knows that he's not debating the actual verdict. He's not trying to call that into question. He's not appealing the actual decision from either of those cases. He's saying that she lied about something else, something that was at the time brought up during the trial. So it's just the fact that he's going after her. It is just, frankly, it's just a man who is abusing his power in the most unbelievable, childish, and just like ickiest way. And I don't think there's another word for it. I wish I had a better word than icky, but that is, it makes my skin crawl. That's what it is.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.